Okay, guys, so this is chapter 7, continued on finalizing risk. So far, we have talked about sensitivity analysis. I know I'm just going over what I've talked about before. Very quickly, sensitivity analysis. We have talked about EVs. We've talked about the different types of research methods. So now we're going to slightly move into something slightly more interesting, and they are referred to as payoff tables, right? Payoff tables. And we can use these as well to choose between options. They sort of give us another angle to making these decisions. Right, so what is a payoff table? A payoff table is a useful way to represent and analyze a scenario where there is a range of possible outcomes and a variety of possible responses. And it just simply illustrates all the possible profits and losses, and then you can make a decision under certain levels of uncertainty. I mean, there is a lot of psychology to this as well, and so it's really about the psychology of the individual and how they want to move, but at least they have the options, and then we will sort of see how different people will react. Okay, so I'm just going to do 2 of them, but we'll do the 3rd one in the next video. So this is a nice, I think, simple example to break down where I'm trying to go. So if we were told that there were 2 similar machines costing roughly the same, and by buying one of them we would get the following profits on the next slide, which machine would we buy? Okay, so let's look at these. We have these 2 machines, machine A, machine B, and machine A gives us profit of 10,000, and machine B gives us profit of 40,000. And now this is, to a certain extent, this is a degree of certainty. There's only one situation. We would buy machine A. It's roughly the same types of machines, but we would get A 10,000 and we'll buy B 40,000. And I mean, you're probably wondering, oh, what are you talking about? It's obvious that we would buy machine A because it's obvious we would buy machine B because machine B gives us the highest profit, and that's obvious. Obvious. Go with machine B. No problem. But sometimes things aren't that straightforward, because in this scenario there's one constant event, and I know that these are the profits. So let me twist things a little. What if the scenario changed a little? I mean, look at the slide now. Which one would you buy? So what if I said to you, well, actually, those figures you had were under a scenario where when there is low demand for our product and we buy machine A, we will make 10,000, and when there's high demand, we will make 100,000. And with machine B, when there's low demand, we'll make 40,000, and when there's high demand, we'll make 15,000. So you can see things do seem slightly a bit more complicated. So it's one of those really interesting ones. I mean, sometimes I know I try to associate football with this a lot, but imagine these were 2 different players, player 1 and player A and player B. Some players just do terrible when they're playing certain sort of low-level teams, and facing low-level opposition. So they don't give you the sort of reward you want. You're sort of surprised at what's going on. But put them in the sort of, UEFA League Champions game where the adulation and everything is pretty crazy. You're thinking, wow, they just come out with some very amazing results. So, as opposed to some players who are pretty stable, they're playing low-level teams, they can give you a good result, much better result than the player from player A. And slightly, when they're playing high-intensity games, maybe they might be slightly overshadowed by all the adulation and all the noise, and they don't give you the same sort of result. So the question is, depending on the type of manager or depending on the type of person you are, you might go for either player A or player B. And that's what the problem is here. The problem really is, what player do you go with? And so there's no right or wrong answer. It's just making you aware that you have these different options. Right. Now, I'm going to change a little. So, let's put it this way. Let's make the decision then. If you say, you know what, I want the stable player, I'm going to go with player B. you're sort of saying, listen, or the stable machine, you're saying, you know that worst case scenario, I'm going to get my 40 grand, whatever happens. Whether there's low demand or high demand. If it's high demand, yeah, I'll get 50. I'm not greedy. If it's low demand, I'll still get 40, which is healthy. I won't go as low as 10. I'll still get 40,000. And so we refer to someone like yourself as a risk-averse person. You don't like risk. You know, you want your players to perform all the time. But you might be looking for glory, and you say, you know what? I really love risk. I'm going to take this risk here. I'm going to go with machine A and hope, if you like, for this high demand. So you're willing to accept the fact that worst case scenario, you're going to fall all the way down to 10 grand if things don't work. But, you want the sort of the big results. And so we'll put you there at that. You go with the high machine. Again, this is really about the psychology again. It depends on what type of person you are. Right, I'm just going to change the scenario a little again, just to show you then, of course, to a certain extent, it does depend a lot on the amounts involved. So I've sort of changed everything again. I've knocked off all the zeros, similar figures, and you can see here that, the difference isn't so much. So here, you're more likely to go for machine if you were risk-loving, because you're thinking it's only a £90 drop. Here, it's just a £10 gain. So, you're thinking, listen, there's a £30 difference here, as opposed to this scenario where you have much larger figures. So not only does the idea of being risk-averse, or what I'm trying to really say is that being risk-averse or risk-loving depends not just on the payoff tables, but also looking carefully at the amounts, which we'll see in the third type of example. Okay, great. So let's look at the definitions then. This is the first definition I want to look at, and it's referred to as the maximin. So the maximin, this refers to the person who, this person is saying, how do I maximize the best of a potential bad worst case scenario? In the examples we've been talking about, we're talking about low demand. How well can I do given low demand? I've said before, this person is risk averse and is a risk avoider. This person is a risk avoider. So we're back up here. So what I'm saying is that we what I'm saying here is that we're a risk avoider. We're going to go with machine B. We will happily accept the 40,000. The worst case scenario, this is the worst case scenario, that there is low demand. What's the best situation in the worst case scenario? The best profit we're going to get is 40 grand in this worst case scenario that will be presented. And that person is referred to as a minimax person. So really, let's look at the other one, therefore, is the maximax, where you're risk-loving. And you're saying, you know what, how do I get the best of a potentially possible good situation? And this person is risk-loving, risk-seeking. So in the earlier scenarios, the good situation was, well, I hope there's a high demand. How well can I do given a high demand? And therefore, we see that here where there is a high demand. And you're saying, I'm going to go for this. What's the best scenario? I'm going to go for machine A. And that's it. So as again I put here, as you can see, any decision made will depend on the psychology of the person making the choice, and if you like, on the amounts involved and the extent to which you think you've made a profit or a loss. Okay, great stuff. So far, what have I covered? I've covered the maximin. I've covered the maximax. In the next picture, in the next video, I'll be looking at the what's referred to as the minimax regret scenario, to sort of look at the theory. Now, please, in your textbook, there is an example on page 242. That's it on Jeffrey Ramsbottom. Just because I'm making a video, these videos are so long, I might go through the example, but this is the theory. So please go through that example in your textbook, and I want you to apply that to looking for the best case and the worst case scenario, the optimist and the pessimist. Again, this Maximin here is the pessimist, this Max guy is the optimist, but the principle is the same. It's creating the table and trying to pick out what the best case scenario is given what the demand or what the situation is, and then reacting likewise. Okay, great stuff. I will see you in the next video.